It looks like it's the end of the road for Tottenham Hotspur boss Antonio Conte after his explosive press conference after the Southampton game. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're all keeping well. So I've just got in from the Southampton game. Of course, Spurs drew 3-3 today at St Mary's. Antonio Conte's press conference, explosive. That is one word to describe it. Here is a flavour of what he had to say after the match.
Yeah, if we are going to discuss about the penalty, it means that we don't want to see other situation. Because the problem is that for another time we show that we are not a team. We are 11 players that go into the pitch, and I see selfish players that don't want to help each other, don't put the heart. They used it here. Don't play for something important. They don't want to play under pressure. They don't want to play under stress. It's easy in this way. And Tottenham story is this. 20 years that there is the owner and never won something. But why? Only for the fault is only for the club or for every manager that stay here? And I have seen the manager that Tottenham had on the bench. You risk to disrupt the figure of the manager and to protect the other situation in every moment. Until now, I try to hide the situation, but now no. Because I repeat, I don't want to see what I have seen today, because this is unacceptable. Also for the respect for the fans. They follow us, pay the tickets, and to see the team another time, to have this type of performance, for me, I repeat, this is unacceptable. And we have to think a lot. We have to think a lot about this.
Now, Saturday evening, Italian journalist and transfer expert Fabrizio Romano has stated that Antonio Conte has been furious for a few weeks with the behaviour on the pitch from his Tottenham Hotspur players in both legs against AC Milan in the Champions League. He does not believe the players share the same obsession to win as he does. Antonio Conte was very clear weeks ago with his Spurs players that he was unhappy with the mentality and attitude. He feels there is a big lack of attitude in the dressing room, which is a reason why new contract talks were never that advanced. Now, if you do want to watch the full press conference, it is available on this channel. I've got to admit, having watched the press conference, having listened to it, I do agree with a lot of what Antonio Conte has said. A number of fans have come out and said, thank God Antonio Conte has actually said what a lot of fans are feeling and thinking at the moment. Is it right to air his views publicly, though? I don't think it is. I think this is probably the end for Antonio Conte, if I'm completely honest. Only last week he upset a lot of the fans by what he said about us being too demanding about winning a trophy. He has thrown every single player under the bus publicly after the Southampton game. He has thrown the board under the bus as well, which they must be extremely unhappy. To throw every single player under the bus after that Southampton draw is wrong, in my opinion. We all have different opinions about things, about managers, players, etc. Yes, we should have won that game. Yes, we should have put that game to bed, got the 3 points, and we should be sitting third going into the international break. Not good enough. Very unhappy as a Tottenham Hotspur fan that we drew that game. To me, actually feels like a defeat. But publicly, throwing every single player under the bus, for me, is absolutely wrong. Shout, swear, jump up and down, do what you got to do, throw objects in the changing room, do what you got to do as managers. You know, we've all seen, heard about it. Alex Ferguson, many managers going mad in the changing rooms, telling their players exactly how they feel. But to come out and slag off every single one of your players, including players like Harry Kane, who he calls an important player. World-class striker, Antonio Conte called Harry Kane last week. Only a couple of days ago, Ben Davies, a very important player. A manager's dream to have a player like Ben Davies in his squad. That's what Antonio Conte said. I don't like the way that Antonio Conte at the moment is contradicting a lot of what he has said. He calls players important players. Only a couple of months ago, he was saying if we doubt the likes of Heung-min Son, then we are in big trouble. You know, he's called a lot of our players big players, important players, and now he's thrown every single one of them under the bus, including Pedro Porro, a brand new signing in the January transfer window. You would think that he was heavily involved in that transfer with his friend and colleague, Fabio Prasci, players that he wanted. He hasn't called Pedro Porro a club signing yet. But let me underline, I do agree with a lot of what Antonio Conte has said. But I just don't think that it should have been aired in public. If he has a problem with the board, go and talk to the board, go and have it out with the board, and see what happens next. Now, Fabio Prasci, as I said, he's a personal friend to Antonio Conte, a colleague to Antonio Conte, somebody he speaks to every single day. I've said on this channel many, many times how someone like Jed Spence can come in as a club signing with Fabio in charge of transfers is beyond me. I find it a little strange, although that is modern football nowadays, unfortunately, for our club and a lot of other clubs in the Premier League and in Europe, perhaps. Dan Juma, still not getting any game time. Still not getting any game time, even against Southampton. Of course, he is a club signing as well. Antonio Conte has also dissed the structure and how transfers are done. He has come out and said that the board haven't won anything in 20 years. Why? He's questioned that as well. I just feel that, yes, Antonio Conte has said a lot of things that a lot of us fans think and feel. But when you're in that position of managing the football club or the head coach of a football club, I think that the head coach is responsible for encouraging the players and getting your way of thinking, your mentality onto the players and making them play the way that you want to. He mentioned about the FA Cup. He put out a weakened team in the FA Cup game against Sheffield United. I think that is personally on Antonio Conte. I know a lot of fans Saturday evening are sticking up for Antonio Conte, saying that, it's right for him to say this, that and the other about the players. The players need a wake-up call, etc., etc. But how on earth is Antonio Conte encouraging these players who he has just slagged off to play 10 remaining games in the Premier League and try and get 30 points to try and get top 4 or a Europa League spot? A decent European spot for this football club. Whether he is manager next season or not, we need to be playing European football. I can't see how criticising the players publicly, like he has Saturday evening, is going to help anyone. It's not going to help the football club. It's not going to help any one of those players. It is not helping anybody. How on earth would you feel as a player being thrown under the bus by Antonio Conte like that? He said every player on the pitch against Southampton was playing for themselves and are selfish players. Every single player. If you were on that bus going home from Southampton with Antonio Conte, I'm sorry, but if I was one of those players, I would be questioning my manager and saying, do you think that I didn't give everything on that pitch? There were some poor performances. Of course there were. But that should be said in the changing room. That should not be for the ears of the fans, the media, and everybody else around the world. I just don't agree with it. As I said, I think that Antonio Conte contradicts himself a lot. And I think that he should be encouraging the players to do the things on the pitch that he wants. Of course, it has been a very, very poor couple of weeks out of the FA Cup, out of the Champions League. And, dare I say it, we do not want to be losing grip of the top 4. Spurs are 4th going into the international break, but when you have a look at the teams around us or behind us with games in hand, it is slightly worrying that we're not going to finish in a Champions League spot or even in a Europa League spot. And Antonio Conte said exactly this. Where do you want to end up? 7th or 8th? This is not what I'm here for. So we've got 30 points to play for, 10 Premier League games left of this campaign. It's like 10 cup finals for whoever is in charge. But I think that the board will probably make a decision of letting Antonio Conte go if they feel that we are not going to finish in fourth spot with Antonio Conte there, i.e. the players being unhappy with his comments, i.e. the board being unhappy with his comments. I don't really feel that the fans' feelings are taken into consideration. It is about whether Spurs finish in a Champions League spot or Europa League spot and bring the money in for next year and bring the fans to the stadium to watch European football. But whoever is managing us next year, we have to have European football. It is an absolute must and a club requirement. But is Antonio Conte going to motivate these players in order to win the majority of our 10 remaining Premier League games? I'm not so sure. And this is why I think that the club will make a decision. And I'll be very surprised if Antonio Conte is still the boss come Monday morning. I really will. It's worth more money to the club by finishing in a Champions League or a Europa League spot than paying Antonio Conte £4.5 million, paying his contract up now and letting him go, and then bringing in somebody to motivate these players and get these players playing for somebody in these last 10 games, like a fresh start, if you like. Now, as a Spurs fan, as much as I really respect Antonio Conte as a person, and he's had a lot of difficulties this last season or so, of course, with very close people sadly passing away, and of course, health problems, it's been really difficult. I really hoped and prayed that it was going to work for Antonio Conte, and I genuinely thought that he was the magician, as I used to call him, the conductor, and I really, really wanted it to work. I can't believe, and I've said this so often, you go from Pochettino to Jose Mourinho to Antonio Conte, and we haven't been successful and we haven't lifted a trophy. A big, big, big shame. But I tell you what, as much as I really respect Conte, I will not miss this style of play. I will not miss a lot of the boring football that I've watched all season. We played some super stuff towards the end of last season when I think of that game when we ripped Arsenal apart, not just because it's them, but it was a good game to watch. We absolutely tore them apart at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and that is the Tottenham that I like watching. And all season I've been waiting for the game where I've been entertained. I've had a huge smile on my face, and you come away from the ground saying, wow, that was a fantastic performance. I haven't done that all season. One thing that does really worry me, of course, is Harry Kane staying at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club beyond the summer. Because, of course, in the summer, he goes into his final year of contract. Will he end up staying at the club until the summer of 24, then leaving on a free transfer? Or will he leave this summer and Tottenham Hotspur cash in on him? What on earth is Harry Kane thinking? That does really worry me. When you go back to the Gary Neville interview on the Overlap, and various other interviews that Harry Kane has done, he's always said if he doesn't feel that the club are going in the right direction, then he would look to move. The club are not going in the right direction, and that is a big, big worry. We do not want to lose someone like Harry Kane. We do not want him to leave. But after today, what on earth would you be thinking if you were Harry Kane? Now, lastly, the board. Antonio Conte has said, you can change the manager, but the situation is still the same. The board have got another huge decision to make now. If it's not now, it might be in a couple of weeks' time. If it's not in a couple of weeks' time, it will be in the summer. They have got another huge decision to make. We have seen in recent years they have made big calls. They have made big decisions. A very unpopular decision that they made in November 2019, sacking Mauricio Pochettino against the wishes of a lot of Tottenham Hotspur fans. I was gutted when I found out the news. because in my opinion, I think that he had or did have more than enough credit in the bank, having taken us to a Champions League final, not spending a penny in 518 days. And then, of course, they appointed Jose Mourinho, a serial winner. We all thought, well, he's won trophies everywhere he's gone. He's going to win one here. Got us to a cup final, was sacked 6 days before a cup final. I know a lot of people that weren't a Jose Mourinho fan, but they did feel that Jose Mourinho should have been given the opportunity to manage us in a cup final. That's exactly my opinion as well. He should have been given that chance. And then, of course, Ryan Mason took charge. We got over the line. We got in the Europa Conference League, so we continued our spell in Europe, although it was a brand new competition, third-rate European competition. Still had European football at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Then we wait 72 days for a manager, bring in Nuno Espirito Santo. Of course, that turned out to be an extremely poor choice. Antonio Conte comes in, and then, a lot of us Spurs fans feel again, including me, this is the man to finally get us over the line. We're going to build something. We're going to go somewhere. And it hasn't worked out. So do we go down the road again? Another serial winner, another manager who has been there, done it, got the T-shirt, even another ex-Chelsea manager that we keep going for. Thomas Tuchel is a name that keeps being brought up. There are lots of managers at the moment being talked about. Roberto De Zerbi, of course, he now has a little bit of Premier League experience, playing some great stuff with Brighton. Thomas Frank, the Brentford manager. Ruben Amorim, the manager of Sporting. There are so many managers, and of course Mauricio Pochettino again. That name keeps cropping up. It'll be really interesting to see what the board actually do. I would just say that they've got to have a plan. The lack of planning in recent years when it comes to recruitment and management has been poor. Something really does have to change. I want this club to be successful. And as I keep saying, I cannot believe that we have gone from Pochettino to Mourinho to Conte, two proven managers, two proven winners, being successful everywhere they've gone. And both of them, in Mourinho and Conte, have come to Spurs. And, Mourinho left without winning, didn't get the chance to play the cup final, and Conte just hasn't been successful at Tottenham. I'm gutted. I'm absolutely gutted. But something really does have to change. But planning, be ambitious. We've got to have ambition at this football club to go forward, to be successful.